Before we begin, I want to ask you something simple. If you believe family should be protected, if you believe respect still matters, if you believe some words and actions can change lives forever, then stay with this story until the very end. Because what you're about to hear is not just drama. It's not just entertainment. It's a powerful, emotional, and complicated story about family, pressure, identity, and choices that can't be undone. Imagine a small spark. At first, it's nothing serious. Just a few words, a few jokes, maybe a little tension. But then that spark touches something bigger, and suddenly, everything is on fire. That's exactly what happened between 50 Cent and T.I. What started as a typical hip-hop rivalry slowly turned into something much deeper, something personal, something that didn't just stay between two men. Because this time, family got involved. And once family enters the picture, the rules change completely. For years, fans watched these two powerful voices go back and forth. Sometimes it was music. Sometimes it was interviews. Sometimes it was social media. It felt like a game, a competition. Who's smarter? Who's louder? Who gets the last word? But recently, that game stopped feeling like a game. It started feeling real. T.I. has always carried himself like a protector, a leader, a father, someone who cares deeply about his name and his family. Everything he does comes from that place, protecting what matters most. On the other side, 50 Cent plays a very different game. He doesn't always fight with music. Sometimes he fights with moments, with timing, with silence, with a single post that can shake the entire internet. He understands something many people don't. Attention is power, and whoever controls the attention controls the story. Now imagine these two worlds colliding. One driven by pride and protection, the other driven by strategy and perception. That's not just a disagreement. That's a storm waiting to happen. And then came the moment that changed everything. The moment when this wasn't just about two artists anymore. The moment when family names entered the battlefield. Tameka "Tiny" Harris, wife, partner, and a strong figure in her own right, became part of the conversation. And then, a new name stepped into the spotlight. Not quietly, not in the background, but right in the center. King Harris, a young man, a son, someone who grew up in front of the world. Think about that for a second. Growing up where every mistake is seen, every word is judged, every moment can go viral. That's not normal. That's pressure. As a child, people saw his energy, his confidence, his bold personality. It was entertaining. It was fun. But as he grew older, that same boldness started to change. It became sharper, stronger, more intense. Because now he wasn't just a kid anymore. He was trying to prove something, trying to show the world, I'm not just someone's son. I'm my own person. But here's the problem. When you're building your identity in public, every move matters. And sometimes, one move can change everything. As the tension between 50 Cent and T.I. grew stronger, King Harris didn't stay silent. He stepped in, defending his family, standing his ground, speaking loudly. And in that moment, the story changed again. Now it wasn't just two legends. It was a father and a son in the middle of a public storm. Social media exploded. People took sides instantly. Some said, he's doing what any son would do. Others said, he went too far. And then came one of the most serious turning points. Words were said about things that should never be used in arguments, about pain, about loss, about deeply personal history. And just like that, a line was crossed. Not a small line, a big one, the kind that can't simply be erased. Even T.I. himself stepped in and made something clear. Yes, family matters. Yes, defending loved ones matters. But there are limits. There are lines that should never be crossed, no matter how angry you are. That moment showed something powerful. Being strong doesn't always mean being loud. Sometimes, being strong means knowing when to stop. But by then, the internet had already taken control. Clips were everywhere. Posts were shared thousands of times. Opinions were flying from every direction. And here's the truth about the internet. It doesn't slow down. It doesn't wait for context. It doesn't ask, is this fair? It just moves. Vast. Now imagine being King Harris in that moment. Young, watched by millions, trying to protect your family, while also trying to figure out who you are. That's not easy. That's overwhelming. And the pressure didn't stop there. Real-life challenges started stacking up. Legal issues, public criticism, viral moments that painted a complicated picture. Every mistake, magnified. Every situation turned into a headline. But then something else happened. Something that could have changed everything. He became a father. Think about that. One moment, you're defending your family. The next, you are someone's family. Someone who looks up to you, depends on you, learns from you. That kind of responsibility changes people, or at least, it should. For some, it was a sign of hope, a new beginning, a chance to grow, to slow down, to think differently. But life doesn't pause just because things get serious. The feud was still there. The pressure was still there. The spotlight was still there. And then, another twist. 50 Cent hinted at something unexpected. Not just more posts, not just more words, but something bigger. A documentary. Now think about what that means. A documentary isn't just a moment. It's a story, a detailed story, one that can revisit the past, bring up old situations, show things people may have forgotten. And suddenly, the stakes went even higher, because now it wasn't just about what's happening today. It was about everything. The past, the present, and how the world will remember it. People started asking, is this strategy or pressure? Is this truth or storytelling? Is this fair or too far? And once again, the internet divided. Meanwhile, T.I. stood firm, making it clear. He's not backing down. He's not running. He's not afraid of the spotlight. Because for him, this isn't just about winning. It's about protecting his name, his family, his legacy. And right in the middle of all this, still stands King Harris, a young man, trying to balance everything at once. His identity, his mistakes, his growth, his responsibilities, his family. That's not just pressure. That's a test, a real one. So now the question becomes, what happens next? Does this situation calm down? Or does it grow even bigger? Does it stay online? Or does it affect real life even more? Because history shows something very clear. When things become personal, They don't fade away quietly. They evolve. And maybe that's the most important lesson in this entire story. Not about who is right, not about who is wrong, but about how quickly things can change. How one moment, one post, one decision can affect so many lives. And how important it is to think before acting, especially when emotions are high. Because at the end of the day, fame doesn't protect you from consequences. Money doesn't protect you from mistakes. And attention doesn't always bring something good. Sometimes it brings pressure. So let me ask you something again. But this time, think deeply. Do you think 50 Cent is playing a smart game? Or going too far? Do you think King Harris is defending his family? Or risking his future? And do you think T.I can keep everything together while standing in the middle of this storm? There's no easy answer. And that's what makes this story so powerful. If this made you think, if this made you feel something, if this opened your eyes even a little, then don't just leave quietly. Share your thoughts. Join the conversation, because your voice matters too. And if you want more stories like this, real, deep, and meaningful, stay connected, because some stories aren't just meant to be watched. They're meant to be understood. Until next time, stay aware, stay thoughtful, and remember, not every battle is worth fighting, but every choice has a consequence.